Well, the government is temporarily pausing the recognition of certain international adoptions in New Zealand following reports of individuals with prior convictions for violence and sexual offences had adopted children overseas. The Adoption Amendment Bill is being fast-tracked under urgency, and it aims to prevent unsafe overseas adoptions from being recognised through our citizenship and immigration system. In one widely reported case, a girl was granted a visa to live with her adopted family here, despite ongoing police investigations into people trafficking linked to her new guardians. Social workers, officials have documented cases where children were kept in domestic servitude, teenage adoptees had wages taken from their adoptive families, and some parents adopted up to 10 children. Briefings to ministers repeatedly warned about the scale of the issue and serious harm to victims. One case involved a 13-year-old girl reported to Oranga Tamariki who described being treated like a slave and a dog, and she suffered 35 injuries. While her adoptive parents were jailed for abuse, they were not prosecuted for trafficking, described by officials as just the tip of the iceberg. Announcing the change, Associate Justice Minister Nicole McKee said overseas courts considering adoptions to a New Zealand family do not always access adoptive parents' criminal or child protection records, therefore do not provide sufficient safeguards for children and young people. And she joins me now. Minister McKee, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah. That was a really good introduction of the bill. Thank you for that.
You're probably thinking, well, I can go now. No, we've still got lots to talk about. And, but Nicole, it's incredible. Children being brought here to be slaves, physically and sexually abused. Do you know what countries the majority of these children are being adopted from?
Look, the reality is that they're coming from anywhere and everywhere. Especially if there is no ability for this, no ability for officials from either country to be able to swap information if they're not signed up to the Hague Convention. And really, from my perspective, this is a New Zealand issue because it's a New Zealand law and a New Zealand loophole that creates what I've labelled a legislative enabler for abuse of children. So, when we look at where we get most of our adoptions from, they come from the Pacific, but we have had adoptions where kids have been trafficked from other places around the world. So really the issue that we need to fix for our children is Section 17 of the Adoption Act. And that issue is where people who are New Zealand citizens or residents that may have criminal convictions for things like sexual abuse and violence are going to other countries' jurisdictions and adopting kids, and these jurisdictions are not necessarily looking at the background of those New Zealand prospective parents. And so we have put this on hold so that we can try and find an enduring solution and look at some of our Pacific countries who are not signed up to the Hague Convention because, as I just mentioned, a lot of our adoptions do come from the Pacific. We are related with our Pacific brethren. There's a lot of cultural aspects that occur with adoption as well. So hopefully this will be temporary while we work on that longer term solution. But I had to say, and I had to put my hand up and go, we need to stop this, and we need to stop it now, because successive governments have seen that this is an issue. But if I can be frank, it's almost like these criminals, these people with criminal intent are taking advantage of the law because they've been able to get away with it for so long. So I'm stopping it and stopping it now. Yeah.
Nicole, do you have numbers, of what we're talking about? How many kids over the years? Or is that not some figures that you've got?
That's the actual issue. I can say to you there's around 1,000 children that are adopted into New Zealand every year, and unless they come to the attention of Oranga Tamariki or police, we don't know that they're in dire situations because there is no information sharing agreement. We don't even know that these people have gone over there and attempted to adopt or successfully adopt someone, but the moment they have, Section 17 enables them to get New Zealand citizenship through immigration. adoption straight away. And we're basically saying that is not in the interests of all children. But what I think I really do need to point out here is the majority of children that are adopted from overseas go to really good, loving and caring homes. What I'm trying to prevent is those few, and we don't know how few there are. We don't know those numbers, Leah,
Right.
but I'm trying to prevent the few that we do know about being harmed.
I mean, I mentioned a couple of cases. Is there the 13-year-old girl they reported to Oranga Tamariki? Do you know of any more that you can walk us through? Or,
yes. I mean, some of the reasons why there's redactions in papers that have been made public is because there's ongoing cases right now that are horrendous that I can't talk about because they're active cases. But what I can talk to you about is what's already been reported. For example, in 2020, there was a gentleman who was prosecuted for adopting 3 boys, bringing them to New Zealand, and then after a bit of period of time, he took one of them out of school, told the school that the boy had gone back to the Pacific, and actually locked him up in his house for a year and used him as a domestic servant. And the only way that this got found out is the other 2 boys ended up scaling a very high fence in the middle of the night, running away to try and get help. So, I mean, that's one example. Another example is of a father who sexually abused his own children and then was successfully granted adoption papers for other children in the islands, which he brought back here and then sexually abused them. So these are the type of scenarios that I'm trying to prevent, but I do need to, just let New Zealand know that this is not something that happens at every adoption. It is rare, thankfully, but we don't want it to increase. And so until I get that long-term solution, which I hope or expect it to be worked through within the next 12 months at least, we're just putting a pause on everyone for now. And I know that that's going to affect some good, loving families, but I ask them to think of the children that are being abused and if they can just wait for a bit. But also, Leah, on the Ministry of Justice website, we have put up some flowcharts of who's affected and who's not, because this is not every adoption. There is specific criteria around Section 17, and there are still other pathways for immigration into New Zealand. So on the Ministry of Justice website, there's flowcharts to explain who's affected, who's not, where to go. But for any of your listeners that are worried or are in the process at the moment, they should seek legal advice. And I think another good caveat for those that are worried is that anyone who's already within the process, that has filed papers with immigration, with DIA, with the courts, they are not affected by this. This is about new applications going forward, not those that are already in train.
So that guy that you mentioned who had sexually abused his children and then went to the islands and adopted more children and brought them back, how does it work, Nicole? Were they a bigger part of another family that of his, or were they children that weren't related to him, but he can adopt them there? Is that how it works?
Yes. So
right.
I